The monitoring screens flickered with impossible readings. Rise stared at his console, pale blue fingers hovering over controls as his mind struggled to process the data. 12 years at this observation post, watching empty space where nothing ever happened. Today, everything changed. The void was tearing open. Space twisted like fabric being pulled apart. Energy readings spiked beyond database limits. The distortion grew larger, crackling with purple lightning that shouldn't exist in vacuum. Something massive pushed through the tier in reality. A ship emerged, dark gray hull scarred with burns from unidentifiable weapons. Strange symbols marked its sides in languages the computer couldn't translate. The design was wrong, asymmetrical, rebuilt multiple times with whatever materials were available. Rise hit emergency broadcast. Observation Post 7. Unknown vessel entered neutral space. Size 4 kilometers, design unknown, origin unknown, requesting council response. Response came fast. Within minutes his screen filled with faces. High Cardinal Voss in golden robes. Director Han with calculating eyes. Warlord Grath with scarred face twisted in suspicion. Ambassador Talia appeared last, gentle features tight with concern. "Show us," Talia said quietly. Rise transferred the feed. The ship hung motionless, surface-absorbing light. Weapons ports lined its hull, hundreds of them, each large enough to house a fighter craft. Strangest were energy signatures from deep within. The ship drew power from somewhere, but not from any known reactor design. Scanning, Rise replied. His computer compared against every database. A match appeared. It's human. Silence. Humans vanished 200 years ago. The entire species gone without explanation, most assumed extinction. Their absence created a power vacuum 3 empires had been fighting to fill ever since. "The humans are dead," Warlord Grath growled. "Ship matches their design patterns," Rise insisted. "Old Earth military designation, but technology level far exceeds anything they possessed." The ship remained motionless 17 minutes. Then it moved, not with thrusters but by bending space around itself. It accelerated toward the nearest inhabited system. High Cardinal Voss stood. That vessel must be secured under divine authority. "The technology is worth trillions," Director Han added, fingers calculating. "My corporation will acquire this asset. It will be taken by force," Warlord Grath declared. Talia raised her hand. "Perhaps we should try talking." Rise attempted hails. Standard frequencies produced no response. Old human protocols, nothing. The ship continued its course, ignoring all contact attempts. Then it stopped. The vessel hung directly in the flight path to the nearest colony. Rise's screen filled with a new signal. Audio only. A human voice, female, exhausted beyond measure. "This is Admiral Grace Hollies of the UNSC Defiance. To all galactic powers monitoring this transmission, we have returned. Maintain your distance. Do not approach. Do not interfere. We are not here to negotiate." The communication cut off. The council erupted. Voss demanded submission. Han offered payment. Grath ordered interception. Talia tried reasoning, drowned out by others. Military forces from all 3 empires mobilized. Ships locked in standoffs for decades suddenly united. Capture the human vessel. Control its technology. Within 6 hours, 150 warships surrounded the Defiance. Outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. The 3 rivals coordinated with surprising efficiency. Rise received a private transmission, the tired voice. "Tell them not to make us demonstrate why we left." Before responding, the channel closed. He watched the fleet close in. If humans had been gone 2 centuries, where had they been? What had they learned? The Defiance charged weapons. Energy readings spiked. Fleet commanders issued surrender demands. A second transmission broadcast everywhere. 30 seconds to withdraw, your only warning. Nobody withdrew. 3 military powers united for the first time in living memory, refusing to back down to a single ship. Rise counted down. At 0, space held its breath. He whispered a prayer, certain he was witnessing something that would change the galaxy forever. The power balance was about to shatter. Grace Hollies studied fleet positions with exhaustion from fighting too long. Her uniform clean but faded, patched where fabric wore through. Bridge crew moved with quiet efficiency, mechanical precision. They had all seen things that broke normal people. Power signatures spiking across the fleet, Davis Brown reported, young at 30 but eyes ancient. They're preparing to fire. Of course they are, Grace muttered. She had hoped to avoid this. 200 years away, apparently not enough for the galaxy to learn wisdom. Same territorial disputes, same posturing, same pride valuing control over survival. Chief Engineer Luis Rodriguez appeared on her screen. Admiral, the Void drive is ready, but I'm worried about sustained use. We pushed it hard getting here. We won't need sustained use, Grace replied. Just one pulse, non-lethal suppression pattern. Luis nodded slowly. He understood what that meant. Show them enough to make them afraid, but not enough to make them desperate. It was a delicate balance. High Cardinal Voss appeared on screen, face filled with righteous fury. Surrender your vessel immediately. Divine law demands submission to spiritual authority. Director Han replaced him. Ignore the priest. The syndicate offers fair market value. Name your price. Warlord Grath shoved both aside. Surrender or be destroyed. 60 seconds. Grace closed her eyes briefly. She had known this would happen. The galaxy hadn't changed. 3 powers locked in eternal struggle, unable to see past ambitions. 2 centuries fighting in the dark, protecting them from unimaginable horrors, and they greeted her return with threats. Open a general broadcast, she ordered. When the channel activated, every ship received her message. I am Admiral Grace Hollies. My crew and I left this galaxy 200 years ago because we found something at the edge of space. A warning from a dead civilization. A threat approaching that would consume everything if unchecked. She paused. We went to fight it. For 2 centuries, human forces held a line you didn't know existed. We lost billions in battles you never heard about. We fought alone because if we stayed, you would tear the galaxy apart arguing whether the threat was real. Lies, High Cardinal Voss interrupted. We came back because we need help, Grace continued. The enemy is breaking through our defenses. In 5 years, maybe less, they'll reach here. When they do, your empires, religions, prophets, none of it will matter. Director Han laughed. An elaborate story to justify invasion. I'm not invading, Grace said quietly. I'm trying to save you. But if you force me to demonstrate what we learned out there in the dark, I will. Stand down. Let me speak to your council properly. Or attack and learn why humanity disappeared. The fleet didn't stand down. Grath gave the order. 150 warships opened fire simultaneously. Missiles, energy. Weapons, kinetic projectiles. Combined firepower that could destroy a small moon. The Defiance's shields caught everything. Purple energy rippled across an invisible barrier as weapons struck and dissipated. Not a single shot penetrated. The shield wasn't consuming energy or deflecting it. It sent attacks somewhere else, into the void between dimensions. Weapons hot, Davis reported. Grace gave the order, fire. The Defiance emitted a pulse that looked like reality folding. The wave expanded, passing through the fleet in seconds. As it touched each ship, systems shut down, engines died, weapons offline, life support remained functional, everything else stopped. 150 warships went dark simultaneously. Not destroyed, not damaged, just deactivated, crews unharmed but helpless, floating in dead vessels refusing to respond. The most powerful military force assembled in decades, rendered impotent in 5 seconds. Silence filled the communication channels. Grace could see the confusion on the faces of the fleet commanders. They didn't understand what had happened. Their ships were intact, their crews alive, but nothing worked. It was as if the Defiance had simply asked their vessels to stop, and they had obeyed. Reactivation sequence in 60 seconds, Grace broadcast. Your ships will come back online. Nothing is permanently damaged. Consider this a demonstration of restraint. She leaned forward in her chair, looking directly into the camera. We spent 200 years learning to fight things that break the laws of physics, entities that exist between dimensions, enemies that can't be killed by conventional weapons. You're fortunate that we still remember how to show mercy. True to her word, exactly 60 seconds later, the fleet systems began reactivating. One by one, ships came back online. Engineers scrambled to understand what had happened. Weapons officers ran diagnostics. Everything checked out perfectly. There was no damage, no sabotage, no explanation. The systems had simply stopped, then started again. Grace sent one final message. I will meet with your council, neutral ground, alone, unarmed, but understand, The power balance you're worried about was already broken the moment we came back. You just didn't realize until now. The question isn't whether humanity is strong enough to threaten you. It's whether you're smart enough to let us help you survive. She closed the channel. Davis grinned despite himself. Lewis looked relieved. Others showed no emotion. They had done harder things. Grace had 30 hours before the council meeting. 30 hours to prepare for the most important conversation humanity had ever had with the rest of the galaxy. The meeting chamber on Waypoint 7 had seen countless negotiations. Peace treaties signed and broken, trade agreements violated, threats exchanged by empires too proud to back down. Today hosted something different. 3 Empire representatives staring at the single human who walked in alone. Grace carried no weapons, no guards, no protection. She wore her faded uniform looking more survivor than conqueror. Ambassador Talia sat closest, the only face showing curiosity instead of fear or anger. Others kept their distance. High Cardinal Voss clutched his holy texts. Director Han had 3 lawyers beside her. Warlord Grath's hand never left his sidearm. The tension in the room could have been cut with a blade. "Let me tell you a story," Grace began. 200 years ago, human explorers found ruins at the galaxy's edge, millions of years old. Inside was a warning system still functional. One message: they are coming, prepare or die. She activated a holographic display. Star maps filled the air. The civilization that built the warning tried to stop what was coming. They failed. They left evidence. Planetary fortresses reduced to dust. Weapon systems that could crack moons, all useless. They disappeared completely. "Who are they?" Talia asked. "We call them the Void Swarm," Grace replied. "Not a species, not alive in any way we understand, entropy-given consciousness. They exist between dimensions and they consume galaxies, matter, light, everything. They've been moving through the universe for longer than we can measure." She changed the display. Images of twisted spacetime appeared, looking like reality itself was being eaten away. "When our explorers found the warning, Earth's government made a decision. We could stay and try to convince everyone the threat was real. Waste years arguing, politicking, fighting over who would lead the defense, or we could leave quietly and buy time." "So you abandoned us," Director Han said coldly. "We protected you," Grace corrected. "Earth sent volunteers, our best ships, greatest minds, most experienced soldiers. We went beyond the rim to find the swarm, to study it, to learn how. To fight it, we established defensive positions in the void between galaxies. For 200 years, we've been holding a line you never knew existed." Warlord Grath leaned forward. "Why should we believe you?" Grace pulled up astronomical data. "Check these readings, long-range observations from your own telescopes, galaxies going dark in a specific pattern, radio silence from civilizations that used to broadcast. The pattern matches the swarm's movement. You can verify every piece of data independently." She showed battle footage. Human ships fighting things that looked like holes in space. Massive entities bending light, consuming energy weapons, shrugging off nuclear strikes. Human vessels fighting desperate holding actions against enemies outnumbering them thousands to one. Talia watched with growing horror. "How many did you lose?" Grace's voice carried weight. "Everyone who left Earth originally. Their children, grandchildren, billions fighting this war. Entire generations born in the void, lived their lives in combat, died never seeing the galaxy they protected." Silence. Voss stared at footage, certainty shaking. Han ran calculations, grasping the scale of devastation. Grath recognized desperate tactics of people who had been fighting too long. "Show them the current situation," Talia said quietly. Grace changed the display to a real-time map of the void beyond the galactic rim. Dozens of human defensive positions appeared, marked in blue. Red markers showed swarm concentrations. The blue positions were surrounded, outnumbered, gradually being compressed inward. "We've been losing ground for the last decade. Defensive sectors falling one by one. We're being pushed back toward the galaxy." She highlighted a section of the map. "This is Outpost Barrier, our primary defensive line. 3 months ago, it was comfortable holding position. Today, it's under constant assault. We estimate 5 years before the line breaks completely, maybe less. When it does, the swarm reaches this galaxy." "What happens then?" Director Han asked. "Look at the footage again," Grace said. "Those things don't negotiate. They don't want territory or resources. They want to consume reality itself. When they reach your worlds, everything ends, not conquered, not enslaved, erased, turned into void. High Cardinal Voss finally spoke, voice shaking. The divine texts speak of no such enemy. Your texts were written in this galaxy, Grace replied gently. The swarm exists beyond what your prophets could see. We're not asking you to abandon faith. We're telling you there's something your faith didn't prepare you for. Grath stood. Why come back now? Because we're losing, Grace admitted. We've held them for 2 centuries with everything we have, but it's not enough. We need help. Resources, ships, soldiers. We need the galaxy to stop fighting itself and unite. Unite under human command? Han asked suspiciously. Unite under survival, Grace corrected. We don't want to rule you, we want you to live, but that requires cooperation on a scale you've never managed. She pulled up a final projection, the swarm reaching the galaxy's edge. Simulations showed consumption spreading like a plague. The 3 empires still fighting each other, being consumed piecemeal. Unite now and maybe survive, or keep playing politics until the swarm arrives and definitely die. Your choice. 3 days after Grace's revelation, the galaxy descended into worse chaos. The warning meant to unite them had accelerated their conflicts. Fear made people irrational, and the 3 empires responded exactly as Grace feared. The Archonate declared the swarm was divine punishment for corruption. High Cardinal Voss announced only those submitting to religious authority would be saved. Fleets mobilized not to prepare defenses, but to force conversions. The Church saw opportunity in apocalypse. The Syndicate took a different approach. Han issued statements about defense preparation, but behind the scenes, her corporation began price gouging. Military supplies that cost millions now cost billions. The Syndicate saw the ultimate market opportunity. The hegemony proved most calculating. Grath publicly committed to defense, but his real strategy was conquest. If the galaxy had 5 years, that was time to unite everyone under military rule. His fleets began aggressive expansion. Grace watched from Waypoint 7 as border skirmishes erupted into full battles. Trade routes closed. Colonies declared independence. The galaxy was tearing itself apart faster than the swarm could have managed. This is madness, Talia said, reviewing reports. We showed them the threat and they're making it worse. Grace stood by the window, staring at distant stars. They don't believe it's real yet. Data and footage aren't enough. People need to see something with their own eyes. But the fighting intensified. A dispute between Archonate and hegemony forces exploded into full combat. 40 ships destroyed in 2 hours. Thousands dead over resources that wouldn't matter if the swarm arrived. Talia approached with unusual determination. We need to take representatives beyond the rim. Show them what you've been fighting. It's the only way they'll believe. Grace had rejected this as too dangerous. But watching the galaxy destroy itself, she realized there were no safe options left. Put out the call, Grace finally said. Tell them we're offering a tour of the war zone. Anyone brave enough can come. The announcement shocked every government. Talia immediately signed up. A hegemony officer named Ren joined despite protests. Dr. Solis from the Syndicate volunteered. Most surprisingly, a young Archonate priest named Aldrich asked to come, quietly admitting he doubted his church's stance. Grace met with them before departure. The trip takes 3 days each way. What you see will change you. Some of our crew needed psychological treatment after first exposure to the swarm. You can still back out. None did. As the Defiance prepared to depart, fighting erupted in 3 more sectors. Ships that should have been preparing for the swarm instead destroyed each other over old grudges. Grace broadcast one final message before jumping. We're taking your representatives to see the war you don't believe in. When we return, you'll have proof. I suggest you use the next week to reconsider priorities. The ship jumped, reality twisted as they left normal space. The delegates experienced void travel. Space looked wrong. Stars disappeared, replaced by absolute darkness pressing against the hull. Time felt unstable. 3 days in the void felt like 3 weeks. Sometimes things moved through the darkness, shapes that hurt to look at. The hull groaned under impossible pressures. Crew moved efficiently. The delegates struggled with basic activities. Finally, they reached Outpost Barrier. What the delegates saw made them understand why humanity seemed so tired, so grim, so desperate. Space ahead was filled with hundreds of battle-damaged human warships. Behind them, the darkness writhed with things consuming light itself. The war Grace described wasn't exaggerated. If anything, she had understated how terrible it truly was. Outpost barrier filled the view screen like a monument. To desperation, built into remains of a dead star system using every piece of debris. Hundreds of platforms connected by defensive grids, weapon emplacements covering every angle. Human warships moved in constant patrol patterns, hulls bearing scars from battles that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Admiral Nathan Cross met them at the docking bay. He looked like Grace, worn down by centuries of war compressed into a single lifetime. His uniform perfectly maintained, but his face told the real story. "Grace," he said, embracing her, then he turned to the delegates. "Welcome to the front line. Try not to die while you're here." Wren bristled. "We're not children." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "Everyone's a child their first time seeing the swarm. Come on." The briefing room overlooked the void beyond. Through armored windows, the delegates saw what Grace had tried to describe. Space looked sick. Reality twisted and bent. Within those distortions moved things that shouldn't exist. Entities without fixed form, holes in space consuming everything they touched. "That's the swarm," Nathan said, pointing. "Each distortion is a devourer. They exist partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else. Conventional weapons pass through them. Energy weapons get absorbed. Only void technology works, and even that just slows them." Alarms blared. Nathan's expression shifted instantly. "Sector 7 breach, all hands to stations." The delegates were ushered to an observation deck. What they witnessed destroyed any remaining skepticism. 3 devourers had broken through. Human ships converged immediately, weapons firing. But the weapons looked wrong. They released pulses of reality-distorting energy. The human vessels fought using the swarm's own techniques. Wren watched with a soldier's eye. When a human destroyer took a direct hit and simply ceased to exist, he flinched. Not destroyed. Erased. The ship and everyone aboard gone as if they had never been. "That was the Harrison," Nathan said quietly. 400 crew. We lose ships like that every week." The battle continued for 2 hours. Humans destroyed 2 devourers. The third retreated. 3 human ships were lost. 1,600 people erased from existence. Nathan took them to the memorial. An entire asteroid carved with names, billions of names, every human who had died fighting the swarm. The delegates walked through corridors of carved rock, reading name after name. "This is the cost," Nathan said. "This is what we've been paying while your empire's worried about profit and territory. My parents are on this wall, my sister, my husband, my children." Over 2 days, the delegates saw everything. Young soldiers born on military stations, 3 more swarm attacks, casualty reports numbering thousands per month, sustained over decades. Nathan brought them to his office on the final day. "Grace told you 5 years until the line breaks. That was optimistic. We've lost 2 more sectors since she left. Real timeline is 2 years, maybe 3 if we're lucky." He showed simulations. Every projection ended the same: total consumption. The 3 empires still fighting each other, being devoured piecemeal. Unite and fight with us, maybe survive, or keep playing politics until there's nothing left. Wren spoke first. "The warlord needs to see this." Solis nodded. "The syndicate will mobilize." Aldrich's voice shook. "The church is wrong." Talia looked at Grace. "How do we make them believe?" Grace's response was simple. "We show them they don't have a choice." The Defiance returned to galactic space after 6 days. The delegates emerged changed, haunted. They immediately contacted their governments, each transmitting urgent reports. The galaxy was about to learn its power balance had become completely irrelevant. Wren's message to Grath was blunt. "Sir, everything we thought we knew about warfare is obsolete. The humans have been fighting an enemy that makes our conflicts look like children arguing. We need to mobilize every resource immediately." Solis addressed the syndicate board. "Profit projections are meaningless if we're all dead. The threat is real, verified, approaching faster than initially indicated. Recommend immediate investment in defensive infrastructure." Aldrich's report to the Archonate was controversial. "Our doctrine is incomplete. This enemy exists beyond what our founders could perceive. We face something requiring adaptation, not just faith. The humans have been our protectors without asking worship or tribute." The responses varied wildly. Grath diverted 40% of hegemony forces to defensive preparations. He began drilling troops in anti-swarm tactics, but he refused to coordinate with other empires. The Syndicate recognized the threat, but couldn't abandon their nature. Han authorized massive investment, but maintained profit margins on all contracts. They would prepare, but someone would still pay. The Archonate split. Voss rejected Aldrich's report, excommunicated him, but half the church's priests sided with Aldrich, creating a schism. Grace watched this unfold with growing frustration. They were moving, but not fast enough, still too divided. The galaxy needed unity immediately. She made a decision that would change everything. "Get me Earth," she told Davis. "Time to commit everything." Fleet Admiral Kenji Osman appeared on screen. "You're requesting the reserve fleet." "All of it," Grace confirmed. "We established defensive positions inside galactic space, forced the empires to accept our protection whether they want it or not." Osman considered. "That leaves Earth vulnerable if the line breaks." "If the line breaks without galactic support, Earth falls anyway," Grace replied. Osman nodded. "Approved, I'm sending 60 ships." Over the next week, human vessels appeared throughout galactic space. They positioned themselves at strategic jump points, critical supply routes, defensive bottlenecks, not conquering, simply establishing military presence at locations essential for any defense. Wherever human ships went, they offered training and technology, but they also made clear they weren't leaving. The three empires reacted with predictable outrage. Emergency council meetings demanded humanity withdraw immediately. Grace attended via hologram, completely unfazed by their anger. "You're right to be angry," she said calmly. "We've shattered your power balance. There are now 4 major powers in this galaxy, and the 4th controls your defensive infrastructure. We did this without permission, without negotiation, without apology." High Cardinal Voss rose to his feet. "This is invasion, occupation." "It's survival," Grace countered. "Your empires had 2 years to unite. Instead, you started more wars. The Archonate is fighting itself. The Syndicate is profiteering from crisis. The hegemony is conquering neighbors. Meanwhile, the swarm gets closer every day." She pulled up the latest data from Outpost Barrier. 2 more defensive sectors had fallen. The timeline had shrunk again. "We now estimate 18 months before the line breaks. Not 2 years, not 3, 18 months. After that, the swarm reaches your colonies and everything ends." Director Han leaned forward. "What are your terms?" "Full cooperation," Grace replied. "You provide resources and manpower. We provide technology and tactical expertise. All 4 powers contribute to a unified defense command. Joint training exercises, combined fleet operations, technology sharing. No more territorial disputes, no more religious conflicts, no more market manipulation. Everyone works together or everyone dies together." Warlord Grath stood. "And if we refuse?" Grace's smile was cold. "Then we withdraw, take our ships, our knowledge, our weapons, and leave you to face the swarm alone. We held the line for 200 years without your help. We can retreat beyond the rim and establish new defenses. Your galaxy gets consumed while we survive behind a new perimeter. Your choice." The bluff was obvious but effective. Humanity couldn't actually abandon the galaxy, but the threat forced a decision: work with humans or face extinction alone. The vote took 3 hours. The hegemony agreed first. The Syndicate followed. The Archonate split with Aldrich's faction joining. It wasn't perfect unity, but it was enough. Grace broadcast to the entire galaxy. 200 years ago, we left to protect you without asking permission. Today, we return and force protection on you anyway. The swarm is coming. You can fight with us or die alone. Either way, humanity will be there at the edge, holding the line. But this time, we won't fight alone. She looked toward the void beyond the rim, where Nathan and countless others still held desperate positions. The power balance is shattered. Now we find